Yo, what's up, dogs? I'm here to talk about Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire by Zack Snyder. And I'm coming out the gate telling you guys, I am a Zack Snyder fan. I've enjoyed his work since 300. I just like his style. I like his take on film. No one else does what he does. His visual flair is just something different, you know what I'm saying? And even when you see people try to copy or imitate it, it's just not the same. Only this guy can do this type of work, and I really appreciate it, and I always look forward to seeing what he's going to do. So when this movie was announced, I was like, oh, sweet, we're going to see him take on sci-fi, which isn't something he's ever done yet, right? Because he's done 300, he's done Watchmen, Sucker Punch, and those are all different worlds, right? But he hasn't gotten into the sci-fi stuff, and so I was really looking forward to his take on sci-fi. So with that in mind, I got a lot of notes here, and I took way too many notes, to be perfectly honest with you. So I'm going to Cole's note it a little bit. So let's dive right into here. I'm telling you guys right now, get ready for some spoilers if you haven't watched it yet. I honestly have watched this film twice. And I also watched The Magnificent Seven again and Star Wars. Because those are the influences that went into this film. And I was kind of like, when I was watching Rebel Moon, before we get into it, I was kind of like, this movie's missing something. And I think it's because Magnificent Seven does the whole story in one outing, right? In Star Wars, the episode 4 is a story in one go. You know what I'm saying? Beginning, middle, end. We're done. We'll see you in the next one, if we even get a next one, right? And that's how I wish this movie was treated, that instead of calling it a part 1, it was just a Child of Fire, and we get this one story, and then we get another story and another story. You know what I'm saying? That builds out the world, instead of leaving us on this kind of cliffhanger and not finishing the story. And I kind of feel like that is a detriment to this movie. However, let's get into this real quick. It's going to be a roller coaster ride. So, Rebel Moon is PG-13, and I've already read that there's a director's cut coming out later in the year, 2024. That's the R-rated version of what he initially pitched to Disney, Lucasfilm, about his Star Wars pitch, right? So there's supposed to be more action, more blood and guts, some nudity, a sexy Star Wars. And I was sold on the idea of a sexy Star Wars, and honestly, what we got here is not a sexy Star Wars at all. We just got a paint-by-numbers sci-fi space adventure, which I am not against. I'm not against that. I enjoy that. However, I think what we were sold is what we were sold. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're telling me I'm getting a sexy space opera, I expect certain things. So going into this, seeing the PG-13 movie, you're just kind of like, all right, whatever. But I'll wait for the director's cut. The budget for this film is $166 million, and that's split between the two films. So this is like an $80 million film for both of them, which is pretty good. The critical scores are really low for this film, okay? So we got the Rotten Tomatoes at 24% on the critic side and 65% on the audience side. The Metacritic is at 32 out of 100 for the critics and 5.9 out of 10 for the audience. And for Letterboxd, my own personal score, I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. And I was at 2 for a little bit. And then I watched it again. I'm like, okay, 2.5, you know. But we'll get into this. We'll get into this. So like I said earlier, Rebel Moon is directed by Zack Snyder. He tells a very, very interesting story. Pretty much word for word, The Magnificent Seven. Now, I've seen a lot of people out there say this is Seven Samurai. Now, I haven't watched Seven Samurai as much as I have of The Magnificent Seven. However, this is the spaghetti western version of that film. And I personally feel like this film, Mag 7, is more accurately inspired The Rebel Moon compared to Seven Samurai. And one reason why I would say that is there's no comic relief in this movie at all. We'll get into it. Ugh. This is. But here we go. Let's get into the story because there's so much going on in this movie, okay? So we're introduced to our main character. Her name is Kaora. She is played by Sofia Boutella, and she is a farmer. Or so we think, right? She's farming. She's on this planet called Velt, and she lives at a farming community. and she's just farming away. And we're also introduced to what looks like a friend. His name is Gunnar, who's played by Michael Huisman. And he just seems to be a farmer who knows his stuff about grain. And I think he is a friend, but also kind of is into Kaora, but he's not playing it like that. You know what I'm saying? So we are introduced to these characters in her new life, so to speak, because we know nothing about her past. And we are also introduced to a little voiceover narration by Anthony Hopkins, who is telling us about the empire, which is called Motherworld, and tells us a little bit about them and their purpose and what they are currently, what their current conquest is. And they are after essentially rebels, but they're stretched a little too thin in the galaxy and they need resources. And that's kind of explained at the very beginning before we meet Kaora. So after we meet Kaora, it turns out that there's a festival, a feast going on, because one of the local villagers named Den, is a hunter, and he found an animal and killed it. And it's like the first time they've done this in so long, because the migration period, there's so much information we're getting fed in the first 40 minutes of this film, just about this town, right? It's a lot of information. And we also we're introduced to so many characters in this film. We get also introduced to Hagen, who is played by Ingevar Sigurdsson, who it turns, as the story goes on, he found Kaora in a crashed ship, and she has lived in the village for 2 years with him, and he is kind of like her mentor, her guidance, her confidant, and just someone that she can always talk to when she doesn't feel like she belongs. And he's really trying to show her a new life of being a farmer and being a part of this community. And he also is actively trying to get her to court with Den, so the villagers will see that she wants to be a part of this community as well, as she marries Den, who is a successful hunter, right? And that's kind of what he's trying to do with her, and we are introduced to that. And we're also introduced to Sindri, who's played by Corey Stoll, who is the village elder, and he is an appointed member of he's appointed to that place, right? He wasn't born into it or anything like that. And he is in charge of everything, right? So, and he's the head of the feast. He's telling everyone, have a big orgy because it will appease the gods and all this stuff. And you're just kind of like, huh? Okay, cool. No sex is going on in this, by the way. There's nothing happening, okay? No, nothing. Just, it's PG-13. Don't even think about it. But he left that scene in. So anyways, Kaora leaves the party. It's over. And I'm going to gloss over some stuff just so you know, because like I said, I have so many notes here, and it's almost too many notes that this would be like a 1 hour synopsis of this movie. It's too much. So the next day, she's in the fields working with Sam, and Sam is another character played by Charlotte Maggi, who's just a town girl at this point in time. We don't know much about her. But she's working the fields with Kaora, and in the atmosphere comes in the mother world. They appear in the atmosphere, and Cora's like, "Oh no, stuff's about to happen. Let's go ring the bell." And she does, and she alerts the town. And the Sindri comes in, and he's like, "Yo, what is this?" And she's like, "That's the mother world. Blah blah blah. They're gonna take everything. They're gonna kill us all," kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So the town has an emergency meeting, and they're all talking about what could the mother world possibly want. And Gunnar's like, "Hey, if they want our grain, let's sell it to them. We'll make a lot of money off of them, and we can maybe have a relationship with the mother world." And Sindri's like, "I don't know about that." And Cora's kind of like, "They're going to kill us all." She tells that to what's his face, Hagen. He's like, "I don't trust any of this. The farmers are going to get obliterated. We got to get the hell out of here." The mother world lands onto the planet and approaches the village, and Atticus Noble is introduced, okay, who is played by Ed Skrein, who is our villain. He is in command of the King's Gaze, which is the giant ship in the sky, and he's an overall just straight up jackass douche. You don't like him. He's a villain, and he, oddly enough, is really dressed like a Nazi soldier, from the the German Empire. It's weird, but also looks cool. See, and that's the thing with Zack Snyder and me. He does stuff where I'm like, that's cool. All the time. I'm like, that's cool. I know it's like space Nazis. That's cool. I have no problems with it, you know. Then again, I like grindhouse movies that are weird. Give me space Nazis. Give it to me. You know what I'm saying? Liked it. So he has a meeting with Sindri, and they talk about grain. So this whole meeting is all about food and grain. He's like, hey, Sindri tells him, he's like, we do not produce enough food for ourselves. We can only give you so much, and even then, we might have a bad harvest. We might not be able to help you. You know what I'm saying? So there's no deal. We can't do this. And Atticus is like, really? But Sindri still's like, hey, come into my house. We're going to have a drink. We're going to be buds. Let's talk it over. And then when they do that, Gunnar speaks up and is like, hey, we have more than enough grain. We could sell you, blah, blah, blah. And this causes Atticus to go like, who is this man over here talking? How he's not the leader. And Sindri's like, yeah, he doesn't speak for us, blah, blah, blah. But then Atticus kills Sindri, like with this big stick thing. He just knocks the crap right out of him, like just kills him dead instantly, like dislocated jaw, death. You know what I'm saying? Really cool scene. And then he comes over to Gunnar and he's like, how long does it take for you to grow the food? He's like, it'll take us 9 months. And he's like, I'll come back in 10. You better have everything ready. And in the meantime, I'm going to leave some crew here just so you guys don't screw up. So he's like, okay, cool. So we get introduced to another character named Jimmy, which is a robot. There's a couple characters introduced here. We have Jimmy. We have... I didn't write his name down, did I? Uh-oh. No, I did. It's on the other page. No, I didn't write his name down. It's on a different paper. It's on a paper that didn't make the cut. Oh, well, that character didn't make the cut. So we're introduced to Jimmy, who's a robot. And we get a little story here of like how Jimmy cannot fight the empire that owns him. He's programmed not to be able to do that. And he tells us a little story when he sits down with Sam at the lake or the river. And he's just like telling us the history. There's a lot of history talking here. And so she's cool with that. And then after that, we're moving now. So after that, after that whole meeting too, Cora's having a sit down with Hagen, and he's like, you have to help us. Like, we need your help. You have to help us fight. And Cora's like, it's an impossible fight. The odds are against us. There's no way we're going to win. And Hagen's like, yeah, but there might be other people in outer space, like in the galaxy, that might want to fight the mother world and help us. And she kind of doesn't believe in it. Like, she's like, yeah, whatever. I don't think so, you know? Like, what do we have to offer and stuff like that? Which comes back to Magnificent Seven, which the whole story is Magnificent Seven. I don't care. Because in Magnificent Seven, the same thing happens, okay? The Mexican village is being terrorized by the banditos for their corn. And the bandits come there and say, we're coming back for our corn again. And if you don't have it ready for us, we're going to kill you all and take your women. And so the people of that village, there's 3 of them, they go to town to find some people to help fight for them. Because they're Mexican villagers who are farmers, they are not fighters. So they go to town to find someone that will assist them in fighting, which they do. You know what I'm saying? And they tell oh God, I can't remember his name right now, but they say to him, hey, we have nothing. We only have this little bit of gold, which is like a gold watch or something like that. If you could help us, that would mean the world to us. But we have nothing. We don't have anything to give you. There's no money. There's nothing. All we need you to do is kill the bandits, right? And there's like 100 of them. And that's the Magnificent Seven. So Cora's like ready to leave at night, okay? And so she does. But then Sam is getting ambushed by the soldiers that were left behind, and they're going to do some naughty stuff to her. And Cora's like, nah, I'm going to kill you all. And she does. And it's a great scene, great battle scene. However, one of the soldiers has a gun on her, and Jimmy shows up, and he picks up a rifle and shoots the soldier that had a gun on Cora. And it made me sit there and go, wait a minute, how can Jimmy all of a sudden shoot people? Did I miss something? Like, I thought he was programmed that he can't fight the Empire. But in that instance, he did. So it makes me sit there and go, is Jimmy special? But we're not explained that. So that's a problem. My brain left the movie for a second there. So after that scene happens, Cora tells Hagen in the next day that she's going to go find out. And Hagen gives her gun back that he found when she crash landed on the planet, which we never see that. And also Gunner's like, I will come with you because I have some contacts in the the city. I don't know why I said that word. That's funny. In the city, that could possibly help us find more people that are willing to fight. Right. So they leave, and once they leave, they have a little nighttime scene, and Kaora tells you a whole bunch about her history of how she used to work for the what was his name? Not Nemesis. Hold on. She was a little girl. She her family was killed in front of her, and the guy, I think it's Cassius, saved her and saw something in her. Like, I don't know if he sees magic in her or something like that, but that could be a thing. And so he protects her, lets her join his clan. She moves up the ranks, becomes a high-ranking soldier of power and privilege. She goes on like a killing spree, like she kills everybody. There's a love interest in there that we don't really know about. And I'm like, what's the point of telling me this? And she is just like a weapon of evil and death. It's kind of the point that they're trying to tell us. Like, this is a woman who is trained in the art of death. So get ready, like this is why she could handle those 12 dudes in the barn. And now she's going to handle everybody else too. So we get to the bar after that little exposition. And she's there. And she's like, hey, I'm looking for the general. That's what she's going. That's her mission right now, is to find the general, this great general that used to be a part of the mother world. And that's her goal right now. It's like, we need to find this guy. He's very important and should be able to help us win this battle. So that's her point. And she goes to the bar. And she's like, hey, where can I find this guy? And there's this it's a cool scene where this brain thing talks to her through a body it possesses. And I really liked it. I thought that was super cool. Really cool visual. Really cool character and alien thing. Liked it a lot. I also like the bartender who has these candles on his shoulders. Really reminded me of something out of like Warhammer or like, just old school fantasy. A lot of this movie reminds me a lot of heavy metal. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but there's like this old school just heavy metal, high fantasy concept, very sexy. And a lot of this movie has that in there, minus the sex. So in this bar, there's a fight, obviously. She beats up a bunch of people. And again, someone has the drop on her with a gun. And Kai, who is a smuggler, shoots him and offers his services and his ship to go and find the general. He's like, I like your quest. Let's do this. I will help you. And Kaora is just like, okay, sounds good. Which made me sit there and go, like, Han Solo didn't just show up with the Millennium Falcon and go, I'm cool to do this. Like, Obi-Wan Kenobi had to sit down and, like, bribe him with money and say, like, we're saving a princess. There's going to be a huge reward for this. And also, Han Solo needed the money because Jabba has bounty hunters after him. So he was in a pinch where he's like, I need the money. So we're interested in this character. Kai, we see him a little bit, like a couple minutes earlier, like collecting a little money off of something. Like he sold someone out. Like he's introduced as a rat and a scoundrel, not as an actual lovable thief or bounty hunter or whatever Han Solo is. Sorry, I'm smuggler of goods, right? And so you're kind of just already thinking about Kai, going, well, what the hell is Kai all about? What's this guy? Why is he this? Who is this guy? And Kaora just goes, yeah, okay, we need a ship. I believe you. And then Kai also is like, hey, I know where we can pick up some more people to help your cause. And then we'll get the general. So then we go to another planet where we're introduced to Tarak, who's played by Staz Nair. And this guy's captured. I don't know why. A bounty was put on him or something, and he's working off his debts. And so Cora's like, hey, I want him. Like, it's so stupid. This scene is dumb because it's dumb. It's dumb. I don't care. I can't defend this scene. And she's like, well, how can we get him? How can we free him? And the guy who owns him is like, well, if he could train the Griffin, the Black Griffin, and ride him and tame him, I'll let him go free and join. He's allowed to join you. His debts are cleared. However, if he isn't able to, everyone that's here is going to get chained up. So Kai, Gunner, and Kaora will become his slave and be chained down, and you'll have to help pay off Tarvek's debts. And Cora's like, okay, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. And in my mind, when I'm watching this, I'm like, he's the only person around on this planet. There's like maybe 2 or 3 henchmen that he's with. And I'm like, you guys, like, you have guns. You have guns. Why don't you just go blip, blip, blip? No one else will see. No one will ever know. How will they ever know? Just shoot them and go about your day. But no, we have to have a cool scene of Tarvek calming the bird, using his indigenous powers, and then he eventually flies the bird and tames it, and he's free. So that scene looks cool, but I thought it was kind of dumb. Like, just kind of dumb. I don't know. And I also wanted the bird to come and join him. So, like, after he does it, he's like, peace out, bird, because, like, they bonded, right? And he's just like, see you later, bird. And I was like, well, that's weird. I kind of thought the bird was going to go on the ship with him. I guess they don't have no room for a bird on the ship, right? No griffin could fit on the ship. But I thought, well, why would we bring him along? And then the griffin kills the slave master, and he's free. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I kind of want him to come and hang out with Tarvek and, like, you know, give Tarvek a couple guns and then fly in a griffin and just shoot everything. Like, that would be cool. See, that's why I like Zack Snyder, though. Like, I think cool, like, random cool ideas, and he does the same thing, but he just makes them happen. So after that, we go and get Nemesis, played by Doona, who's on another planet, and she's a sword master. And it's so random, too. Like, we just join her. And it's the crew, right? The 4 people. And we just join her. And we go and watch her beat up a Spider Woman, which is cool. Like, it's cool. It's just cool. And we get the introduction to potential lightsabers. But they're not really lightsabers. They're just swords that emit heat. Like, I don't know. Everyone's saying, oh, these are lightsabers. I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. They're just fantasy swords to me. I don't care. She kills the spider thing, which was cool. She saves a little child. And then she's like, yeah, I'll join your team. On to the next. And then we go to General Titus, finally. And they find him on the planet. That's where they went. He looks like he's just a drunk bum who's, like, just in the streets. They wash him up, and the wash-up scene actually looks really cool. They framed it out really nice. Again, stuff Zack Snyder does. He makes really great 4K wallpaper scenes, man. Like, you would just go, click, I want that. It looks cool. So we're introduced to Titus. Nothing cool happens. He doesn't fight anyone or anything like that. He's just like, yeah, I'll join. He has a little PTSD, but he's like, I'll join, I'll fight, and that's it. So we move on to the next thing, which we go to this other kingdom called, I can't remember the name of it, but it's ran by King Levitica, who's voiced by Tony Amendola, and he is in league with the rebels, but the Motherworld doesn't know that, and so they went to him in order to so Gunnar can contact the Blood Axe character, who's played by Ray Fisher, who's the rebel leader, and Gunnar knows him because he used to sell grain supplies to him off the side, like make a little side hustle. So that's how this whole meeting is able to happen. And Blood Axe is kind of like, yo, I don't want to do this, but you know what? You have a good point. Let's do this. Let's fight. And his sister, who's played by Cleopatra Coleman, who's named Deborah, she is like, okay, brother. And like Blood Axe is like, who wants to come and fight with me? And only a couple of his crew show up, and it's like, yeah, we'll fight with you. And then the rest go off with Devera and just leave. Like, they're gone. That's it. So after this part happens, they leave the kingdom behind, and then we have a scene with Atticus is there, and he's just beating the crap out of the king, right? And he kills him. He kills him with that stick, just like he did with Sindri at the beginning here. And because it's like, oh, you've been housing the rebels this whole time. I thought you were working with us. And like the king's like, no, man, I'm pro Motherworld, you know. I'm not that way. But he's not, and he gets killed. So after he kills him, we get a scene with Kai and Kaora, and Kai's like kind of warming up to Kaora, and Kora's warming up to him. And he's like, look, we gotta make one last stop, and then we can go back to your town with everyone, and we can get ready. But I have to get rid of this cargo, right? So they make a stop at the cargo hold. I don't remember what it is. It doesn't matter. And as he's unloading the cargo and all the crew is there and doing stuff, all of a sudden, this big ship shows up. It's not the King's Gaze. It's another ship, and it's an ambush. And Kai sold them out, and so they got captured by these cool little robot scorpion things that like attach to you and hold you in place, and you can't get out. It's really cool robot technology. I liked it a lot. So now they're going to essentially get killed, right? It's kind of like Atticus shows up and he's like, yo, thank you for giving me these people. We're going to kill them all. And just as he's about to kill them, Gunnar turns on Kai and shoots him in the head with the bolt rifle thing. And then he unlocks Kaora. And then this is a big fight scene from that point on. It's just guns blazing everywhere. Bang, 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 bang. And Blood Axe sacrifices himself to take down the ship, which is a really cool scene. I liked it. And yeah, the ship crashes. Blood Axe dies. Kaora goes over and fights Atticus one-on-one, beats him up, kills him, leaves him to dead, and they escape off of Kai's ship. The rest of the remaining members are all gone, and it's like, let's get out of here. And this is a thing I have to point out here too. So if you watch the entire movie, you really don't learn much about any of these characters, right, other than Kaora. So once you get to the spot and they're all captured, Atticus is like telling you everything about each one of these characters. Like, he stops at Nemesis. He's like, oh, you've killed so and so many people. You are a great hunter. People feared of you. And then he talks about General Titus and talks about all of his accolades. And he talks about Kaora and all her accolades. And it turns out that Kai rounded up each one of these individual people because they all have a bounty on their heads, and he's selling them to Atticus to get all the money. That was his big plan. His big plan was, I'm going to capture all these rebels and get a lot of money off of them. And even this is where we learn that Tarvak is a prince of what? I don't know, and no one does. So it was a weird reveal. Anyways, Atticus is dead, so do we think. And we get a cool scene where Atticus is like hooked up to all these tubes. I really liked it. I thought it was super cool. It just reminded me of something from like an anime. And he's brought back to life. And he actually he has a conversation with Cassius, which is kind of like just foreshadowing what's to come. And that is essentially the end of the movie right there. And it gives us the sequel, like it tells us the trailer for part 2, get ready, all that, which comes out in April. Now, here, okay, I have nothing else to say about this movie at this point about the actual film itself. But here's the problem that I have with this movie, okay? When I was watching it, I felt like there was no proper conclusion, right? And as someone who's a big fan of Magnificent Seven and watching this film and going, oh, this is Magnificent Seven, I expect to see this, 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 and this. And they give you this, 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 and not this. So with the Mag 7, you get the problem, and then you get the solution of the heroes getting the 7 people, and you get to see them all. It's very quick, but each scene is actually cool. I felt like Magnificent Seven introduced their characters cooler and more fluidly than what this movie did. And I think that's kind of interesting. And I also would like to point out that Star Wars Episode 4 introduces all their characters very fluidly and very naturally as well. And I kind of think that is like a weird detriment to this movie, where we get introductions to each character. And honestly, I love it. I love being introduced to characters and seeing them be like cool, badass. That's my thing. I love it. However, the fluidity of it felt so unnatural and forced, and not all the introductions were cool, and they were kind of just like, okay, this is a thing. And maybe that's a problem because it's in space, whereas Magnificent Seven it's in another town where they find these guys, right? And like they're not far away from everybody, so it makes it more grounded in reality, where it's like I could just go over there. Or, I don't know, maybe there's something just lost in translation in the inspiration, you know what I'm saying? And so at the end of Mag 7, we have the big fight between the Banditos and the heroes. And there's even a cool like kind of double turn thing in there too. There's a lot of good stuff that happens in the original Magnificent Seven, where I was expecting it to happen in this. So like in the instance where Kai turns on them, it almost should have happened when, like, it should have happened differently. Like the King's gaze, and okay. So what should have happened is we went back to the Veldt in the farming community, and we should have had scenes where these heroes, these 7 heroes, started training the villagers to fight, right? Because you have the general there. He can start training them all the tactics and all that stuff. I mean, like, let's get ready to fight. And then we have the Atticus and his people show up. There could have been a turn there with Kai. Instead, something could have happened there. He could have got behind the enemy lines by selling out one of the prince, maybe sell out the prince and be like, hey, and then the prince is behind enemy lines and he does something that gives the farm village an advantage or something, like a sacrifice. Because if you watch Magnificent Seven, certain characters do not make it and they sacrifice themselves for the greater good to save these people. And that would be something that would happen in this movie. And it should have happened at part one. Part one, it should have just been a Child of Fire. So, and not called part one. So, at the end of this movie, we should have had the fight. We should have had the climax. We should have had that reward. And hey, you know what? Maybe the king's gaze flies away with its tail turned, like tail between its legs, and it's like, I'll get you next time. Or maybe this is where the rebels are like, hey, we finally got a victory. Now we can put the push on. You know what I'm saying? Which would set up the second movie, part 5. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Episode 5 of Star Wars, right? So now it's like the rebels gotta win. And that's the problem with this movie, is you watch the whole thing and you don't get a reward for watching 2 hours and 14 minutes. You get nothing. Like, that's the problem. You get nothing. And you're expecting something. At least I was. And that's why it gets a 2.5. You don't give me the finished conclusion. Anyways, that's all I have to say about this movie. And I like, there's things about this obviously that I do like. There really is. But when it just comes down to the story, that's the thing I'm here to watch, you know, and get into. And that's where the downside is to this movie, which kind of sucks. But yeah, what I would recommend you do, watch the original Magnificent Seven, watch the original Seven Samurai, watch Star Wars Episode 4, and then watch this. Should you watch this movie? Yeah, why not? It is, honestly, I would recommend you watch this movie on a rainy day. Why not? On one of those days, a sick day, you're not feeling too well, you know, you want to get a little tea in you, and you know you're going to have that sneaky afternoon nap, this is the movie to put on for that. That'll get you in the zone, no problem. I guarantee it. And that's what this movie is good for. Yeah. Other than that, will I buy it? I can't. It's only going to be on for streaming. If they ever release a physical copy, maybe. I doubt it. That's about it. I'm going to go and finish my review for The Boy and the Heron. I'll talk to you guys later. Whatever movies you guys are watching, I hope you're loving them and digging them. I'll talk to you all later. Peace out. Bye.